On The Recyard, women's prison podcast, where we are live on the Recyard every Wednesday night. Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday night. We are on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast. I'm Marci Marie.
I'm Toonchi.
Toonchi, I already had a mishap, but I don't think people caught it. So
they caught it. I promise to God they did.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, well, thank you for that. We see you all coming into the chat already, and we're so glad to see you. I see you, Rayanne. I see you, Audra Lee. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking and all of those good things. And y'all, thank you for sharing this live. That helps us to reach an even broader audience, and we appreciate it more than you know. We see you tuning in from Facebook. We see you on LinkedIn. I see you on YouTube. And thank you so much. Toonch, we have a great show tonight.
We do. I'm excited for it. I made it here in time. I ran to HEB, which is our local grocery store. And
for you non-Texans.
For you non-Texans, those of you who have an HEB, you know those buttered tortillas are what's happening, but you also know they don't really hire felons. So it's a tough call, but the buttered tortillas, they're hard. It's hard to say no to.
You know, I had forgotten that HEB is not a second chance employer, and the nerve of them. You are a grocery store. Get over yourself and hire the people, frankly.
Yes, Charles Butts. That's his last name. That's his last name. And I am going to talk a little shit because you're right. They are not a second chance hire. If you made it to HEB employment, you somehow got past them, which is weird because the Texas prison system, I remember not long ago, was it like a year ago, 2 years ago, they had HEB speaking at some event to some guys in Huntsville. And I'm like, why in the hell would you invite them to come speak? They won't even, this is another good point for us too. They won't even, depending on what you tell them your nonprofit is and what it's for, to ask for donations, they get weird too then.
Well, their tortillas are the bomb. And I don't know where I stand on if we get to eat the tortillas or not anymore. But yeah, HEB do better for most certain. Tonight, we are not talking about the warm buttered tortillas. We are talking about being a parent, an incarcerated parent, and navigating that path of mothering while you're in prison, mothering after prison, and the healing afterwards, right? And we have a very special guest. We have Heather Jarvis is our guest on the show, and I will give her a proper introduction shortly. But she is my friend from the Represent Justice cohort, and she is also a published author, an extremely talented writer, and a passionate criminal justice reform supporter and organizer. So I'm really excited to have her. She is also recently released. This year, I believe. We'll get her on the show in a moment. Before we do that, let's do this. Let's do a weekly recap. See how smooth that was?
It was pretty. It wasn't like the intro. So
9,900 times later, I have finally got that down pat. How was your week?
I don't know what I did, Marci.
It's because you're in a battle right now.
I am.
Yeah, and that's okay if you
I'm
don't
fighting
remember.
for my life, y'all. I'm just going to be honest, and it's hard to be honest about this. I found a couple of little bugs in my house. Okay? Little roaches. I freaked out. I tore the apartment apart. I duct taped every single crack and opening in this apartment. I flipped out. I think it's because my neighbors that moved in are nasty and they pile up their trash outside, because I can only imagine what the inside of their apartment looks like. So I've been real tweaked out for the past 2 or 3 days since this has started, and haven't been good in a mental space because I'm gonna tell you, it made me feel like I was at reception in Gatesville, Texas, in prison. Filthy, nasty, and you have no choice but to lay there. You know when the bugs crawl across your face in the middle of the night? Freaked me out.
The psych center, or not the psych center, excuse me, the hospital, the psych hospital, Skyview, it has one wing. It's kind of a dorm that has, like, sprouted like a four-pronged star or something, but one half is completely infested, with
Oh,
cockroaches, and if you've ever been locked up in Texas and had a mental health crisis where you were sent there like I was, your first several days, you don't have any clothes, you just have a blanket, you don't there's no mattress, there's no I mean, they're feeding you, like, Johnny's, you're not going anywhere, and you're in there, it's dark and dank and dirty, dungeon-like, and there are cockroaches everywhere. I mean, not a few, not like, "Oh, I saw some bugs," like at Lane Murray, like where if your bed is near the shower area where the water supply is and that you're gonna see some. No, I'm talking about, yeah, they're crawling on you. It's happening. If you sit down or lay down to sleep, just know that and so if you're not mentally stable going into that, that could surely mess you up. So I know you've been dealing with that, and I oddly enough do not remember how your week was either.
well, you can tell folks about your trip, but Saturday, me and me and a friend, Peach, we did some Taylor dance party, and so I enjoyed that a lot, and for the holiday weekend, I just kind of sat around and worked on the computer, hung out with some people, just chill. And then this shit,
Yeah,
over the
and
past
then
3 days, the invasion.
well, we did get to go to Detroit. My wife and our good friend that we did time with, and who is also the lead organizer for Lioness in Tarrant County, Denise Cherry, she was with us, and we went to the FICPFM, formerly incarcerated and convicted family members movement. Like, I don't know what it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's a long acronym of people doing long work. Like, they are in it in the trenches, from the ground up, organizing across the country. It was really, really great. And man, the energy. I want to tell y'all, we go to some of these convenings or conferences and it's trainings and it's kind of dry. It's a bunch of different panel discussions that are kind of hard to pay attention because it's just not the energy's not up, so you're tired from traveling. And but this was like, it was lit. Let me just say it. It was lit. Like, it was DJ, music, people standing up, dancing. I mean, the whole time from the time we got there to the time we left. And so you would go to this big energy when everybody's together, 500 people that have been impacted by the criminal legal system in this country, and all doing major work in their area, and dancing and shouting, and then you go to learn about this, and then you go back and it's energy, and then you go and learn, and we stayed engaged the entire time. They did an excellent job of putting this thing on. And then there was this moment where we are uh walking down downtown Detroit, and I look over at my wife, who I met on the Dr. Lane Murray unit, and I look over at Denise Cherry, who was locked up there my entire 10. This darling has been gone 33 years. She got locked up when she was 15, and I see them both, and I picture them in their TDCJ prison whites, and I remember how they looked in there, and I remember things that we went through in there, and we're just in the middle of downtown Detroit, where there is so much culture. I didn't realize Detroit was like this, but so much artwork and culture and architecture to enjoy. And it was just one of those moments that I was like, this is an aha moment for most certain. So yeah, it was good. We do have a couple of things coming up on Saturday in Plano. You guys check out we're going to be in Plano and in Fort Worth on Saturday. Linus will be. So check out our social media platforms for the details on that. And I'm ready to talk about being a mom in prison.
Let's do it.
I have Heather C. Jarvis here, and I'm about to bring her on the show. Let me give her the introduction that she deserves as the professional woman that she is. She is a resilient advocate for women facing gender-specific challenges in the criminal legal system. She's a survivor of addiction and incarceration. She transforms her experiences into powerful narratives through writing, speaking, social work, and storytelling. Heather's work has been featured in various notable publications, including The Crime Report, Slate, Scalawag Magazine, and the Prison Journalism Project, among others. Heather holds an AAS in correctional rehabilitation from Sinclair College. She is currently a social work major at The Ohio State University. Her firsthand experiences with incarceration and generational crime, both as a child and a parent, fuel her advocacy. As a 2024 Represent Justice Ambassador, Heather's story of transformation and courage inspires others to find their strength and change through narratives. My beautiful friend, you all please give a warm welcome to Heather Jarvis.
Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Heather. Thank
Hi,
you so
honey.
much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise with us, and we're really excited to get into
I
some
wouldn't
of your
exactly call it
experiences.
expertise, but okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, 10 years of experience makes you an
Yeah,
expert.
Yeah.
let's hope.
Yeah. I have recently been deemed an expert in Texas prison courts, an expert on Texas women's prisons. And that's from my experience and the collective experiences of the women I know, and you as an incarcerated person of that length, 10 years, right? You were locked up for 10
Yeah,
years?
10 years. It's just crazy that that makes it sound good when it was such a horrible situation to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, but I think that you're kind of taking that, not kind of, you absolutely are taking that traumatic experience and using it to as a catalyst to make change. And the people are already asking for your socials.
Hi,
Yeah.
guys. And I please do because I cannot get an agent until somebody pays attention to me on social.
Her socials are highlighted underneath our pictures here. If you're watching, if you are somewhere listening, wherever you hear your favorite podcasts, know that you can find Heather on X at Heather C. Jarvis. That's Jarvis. On Instagram at Heather C. Jar. HeatherCjar, and on Facebook at Heather C. Jarvis Speaks. Also, I'm going to make sure on my personal platforms where this is streaming, I'll leave that in the comments, and I'll also maybe be smart enough to leave it in the comments even right now. So Heather,
You're
you
an
you
expert.
how long have you been out of prison?
I'm 9 days shy of a year.
Wow.
Wow.
Welcome
Yeah,
home.
it's been something. Like, just how quick. Like, I was talking to my grandmother today, and she was like, "Yeah, it's been a year," and I'm like, "It just happened so quick, and everything just changed so quickly, and like just having to adjust and things. It's just been very different." And honestly, I'm not adjusting well, if I'm honest, but I don't think I am. Everybody else does, so we'll see. But I
Well,
have
do
my
you
daughter with
yeah.
me. I've had her for since June now.
Oh, I wanna get into that. I definitely wanna get into that, but I wanna pause very quickly because, um, I don't think I'm adjusting well. Toonch, do you think you're almost 5 years home now, right?
Almost 6.
almost
been
6.
almost
It's
6.
almost like it gets worse the further it goes a little bit, I think. I think I was kind of like emotionally because I was so excited when I first got out, and now it's like the reality sets in. So
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point that I think me and Marci and our friends have tried to illustrate is, and which I would tell the women on the inside. I was in for 10 years. I got out for almost 5. Then I was back in almost another 10 years. And so everybody be excited to go home. And I'm like, yeah, but that wears off, right? Like that wears off after a couple of weeks. And, you know, the taking a bath and pizza and being able to do stuff, like then reality starts to sit in. And then like all the old stress is now new stress. And, you know, so I would try to prepare people for that, you know, but when you're in the middle of that excitement, it's okay. Yeah. And then that is the roughest period to me. And it was the roughest period personally for me, was that first year for sure. And then even the second year, I don't always think that I'm adjusted well. What matter of fact, I was just talking to someone today and I was just like, girl, I'm freaking out over a bug, right? Like I'm already back in prison, freaking out. Like it doesn't take much to trigger my old trauma. And I don't know if that ever goes away, you know?
yeah, I'm lucky that I have people in my life that get it. Like, well, they don't get it, but they like, I'm real funny about lights. Like, I'm just now getting to where I can sleep in the dark. The other day I had a panic attack at my boyfriend's doctor's office because it was like the closed space. This morning I didn't even think about it. I was up here in my room, you know, because this is where my desk is and stuff. And my Red Bull's warm. I don't want a Red Bull. I opened my window right here this much, sat it out the window and closed it because that's just the stuff you're used to doing, you know. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, I think it's not this it is magical coming out of prison, but it's not the magical in that the free world makes everything okay,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely, because
And
it doesn't.
right. Our friend Jerry Swaim, she's been home 6 years. She says electronics still give her panic attacks, and you know, we work with a population that's formerly incarcerated, and I think that you're just yes, you're doing great. You're doing
Thank
great,
you.
sister. When it doesn't always feel that way, and I feel that same anxiety.
Well,
So
and can I say this?
please,
How beautiful that you felt safe enough to share that with us and to acknowledgement and to be able to talk about it. I'm not so sure that I was able to really be honest about how I was feeling the first time I got out, and then the second time I did have Diane, BF Diane, who was a formerly incarcerated woman that could
I have a
help
Diane
me.
in my life.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Was that
but
who? It was that who that chimed in earlier? Somebody said,
no, that's Ashley. Don't mind
"Oh,
her.
okay."
She'll probably do it 100 times. We love her though. But
Yeah.
no, she was a navigator. But like, I think sometimes I'm realizing that I think that that's my gift and why people actually listen to me is because I'll admit my wrongdoings all day long. I'll admit if I'm struggling, and I just do because I don't know why. And I'm starting to learn since being out that like not everybody's like that. And like when I'm in experiences with them, I can't share their experiences for them. And so it's just, yeah, but thank you for.
Mhm.
yeah, thank you for being vulnerable and being someone that's able to just openly share, and that does make it easier for people, and I think that does attract other people. So I'm really excited to see as you're getting out in the public eye a little bit more, how things start really coming together for you. I want to talk about your daughter. So let's just back up just a little bit and tell us how much time you did, and you just have one daughter?
No, so whenever I got incarcerated, I had a 7-year-old. Her name's Odessa. I had her when I was 14 years old. And so when I got incarcerated, I was just freshly 21. And I had her, and then I had just had a baby. Her name was Anna Leia. And I didn't really get a chance to bond with her. I had her in November and I got locked up in April. So it was very like quick. Like she was never mine. I know that's
Mhm.
but that's the truth about it. She was never mine. But so then like when I was in prison and like getting ready to come out and stuff, that's hard when you're trying to like build a bond from only that. But
How
I
many
tried
years
my
later?
darndest.
Yeah, how many years later? You did 10. You did.
Yep.
So you have a 10-year-old and a
And, so
16.
Odessa's 17.
Oh, 17. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had this thing for Anna since she didn't know me that I think that, I wish people knew more because it works. Whenever don't make them talk to you. If you call and they're busy, don't make them talk to you because then that makes you a chore and not something they wanna do. And so I was really big on not making my little one talk to me. Like, I would say, "All right, tell her I love her, and it's okay." And if someone else tried to, I'd get kind of upset and be like, "No, don't." Just because I wanted her to wanna talk to me. And I did, like, different stuff while I was inside. Like, I had, like, because my daughter went through a rough time, that's her business again, because people don't share like I do. And I was sent my older one. I was sending her, like, all these envelopes just full of, like, motivational stuff, and I used to, like, craft and crochet and find, like, all these little things to send them. And it was just very difficult to try to keep finding ways to seem present in their lives in any way.
So you had family members that had a phone available and that were willing to let
I
you.
am blessed that, so the first couple years of my incarceration, I had my dad who raised me, and I had him, and then I also had my mother. And my mother is who kept my kids the whole time I was gone, and she just she did. She stepped up and took them, and then my dad ended up passing away, and she didn't really work, so now she is just starting her whole life over by herself without a husband. Her son just died, and she's doing all that. So I just kudos to you, mom, if you're watching this, because I don't tell you enough that I appreciate you. But she would, no matter, she would bring them up to see me. But it started out just like everybody's. When you first come, they come to see you all the time. But
Sure.
then once time goes on, and then they started doing video visits. And so they were like, we'll just have a video visit. I'm like, it's not the same. But so I could always count on her though for family day because I was in a time group, which is a group for people with longer lengths of sentences. And we had family day, this big thing where they do, it's like everybody that's in the group gets to invite people in, like visitors that are on their list and their kids, and they have activities, and the sergeant's like making hamburgers. And it's just for a second, you're not there, you know? And even if my mom never came them last couple, or if they didn't come, I knew no matter what on family day they would show up. So
What state did you do your time in?
Ohio
Yeah.
Reformatory for Women.
So, and of course, we did our time in Texas, so our knowledge is always about Texas prisons, but we certainly have community nationwide from everywhere. So it's lovely to see Ohio doing family days, and I'm curious if family days were accessible for everyone. What were the
They're
criteria and
actually
restrictions?
very fair how they get them. Not I'm in a group, and I am realizing. Let me say this real quick. I am realizing how far ahead Ohio is in like special programmings and education, just because of all the things I've done. I could talk for all days about everything I did there, and amazing things. But my first family day, they take your ID, your famous ID. I'm sick of having it on my shirt anyway, and you drop it in a bucket and they pass you over there. They bring everybody that wants to come to Mother's Day and they put it in the big bucket and mix it in front of you and pull them out.
Wow.
Yeah, so how often do they do family days? So there's one in the summer, and there's one in the winter for Christmas, but normally only 50 people get selected, maybe less than that if they can't. So that's the ones that's open for general population. But then if you're in like a time group, they have their own, but if you get the time group one, you're not eligible for the other ones. Like they have them for different things. Like I was also a praise dancer in ministry, so one time my ministry would have family day once a year too. So, but I no matter what, they would come to the time group one. So yeah, there's like a lot of like really good like we would get to like go over and pick them out presents, and then they would wrap them and they would be there at family day when Santa came and stuff on Christmas. I always like the Christmas one.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to talk about visitation and I'm just thinking about interactions with my own children. And for those of you that might be listening for the first time or don't know my story, but when I was incarcerated, I had 2 in diapers and 3 in middle school, and I did 10 years also, right? And so I'm just kind of picturing some of the things, thinking about things that I tried to do to make memories during that short little carceral setting visitation. And so could you just talk to us about what visitation looked like for you all?
So, visitation days were always really quick. You looked forward to them, and then for months at a time, and for family days, and then they just because that was the majority of my visits was family days. I didn't go to the visiting hall often, but they just went too quick, and you never they just went, that's all. But I was really extra about, since I didn't get visits, trying to figure out other ways. So like whenever they started the video chats, I was in this program and they made like this Candyland castle for something, and I like put it behind me and I put on this little hat and was like dancing for her and stuff. And I do stuff like that, and like little envelopes, or I have something to show you if you want to see something.
We would love to.
So
Yeah.
it's because whenever I used to mail all this stuff home, because I crocheted a lot, they'd be like, they don't even like, it's like they don't even use it. And I'm like, well, but it's and then so I slowly started falling off of it. So yesterday, I know I'm coming on here today. Yesterday, my daughter Anna, when she went back to my mom's house, she got maybe 2 boxes full of stuff that she brought up here, knowing she was coming with me forever, and this was one of them that was in there.
Yeah, we definitely wanna see. I love seeing things that my kids kept. Oh, you
So it's
crocheted
like
that?
a little unicorn backpack that I made. See, it has her little name.
Oh. Heather, you made that in prison and then
I
were
did.
able
It
to
took me
send it
forever,
home?
and her hair's curly. And if you look at her little horn, it's dipped in glitter glue, glitter and floor wax,
That's
but
so
it's glitter.
cute. That's so cute. For those of us, or for those of you that can't see and are just listening, know that it is quite literally a backpack with a stuffed unicorn head, and
Yeah,
it's
and so
beautiful. Her name is crocheted on it on little hearts, and it's absolutely it looks like something you would buy at some bougie boutique somewhere. Uh, but that's
well,
not
thank you.
happening in Texas prisons. Nobody's crocheting and getting to send things home and
That's
or
what that's what I'm learning now, is how far ahead Ohio is on stuff like that, and how because especially like being in the because I'm how would I explain it? Like they just really do. Like we had arts and crafts, you could go once a month. They don't have it now. It got like they're switching to a new, or I don't know what they're doing now because I'm not there. But you could go and buy yarn. I did blankets. I did all types of things. Stuffed animals became a thing. She had a little squad that she called the Puppy Go Getters. So I would make stuffed animals, like mostly unicorns and different things. I made Poppy once, and I'd send them to her. But I knew she really liked them if they became part of the Puppy Go Getters.
if they were in the cool
Yeah,
kid
because some of
club.
them didn't make it. Some of them didn't
Yeah.
make it.
Well, Marci, I don't think was y'all's craft shop open at all at Lane Murray?
We had a craft shop. It was very strict rules how to get into the craft shop,
Mhm.
and the ladies that were in there, I mean, they were lifers.
Hmm.
They were I if I mean, I think it was only like 4 in the 10 years I was there, only maybe the maximum was 7 or 8 different women
Mm.
participated in that. So it was very narrow. Um, and the things that they could make things, and they did, and I believe, that they could. There even was an outlet where I think officers bought a lot of their stuff that they
Yeah,
made.
Yeah.
my friend, one of my good friends, she just got released, and her name is Heather Jarvis. She did a lot of staff contracts because she can crochet the hell out of some blankets. And also, whenever arts and crafts was open, it was a tight knit group of girls that worked down there, but they were all always super nice and would help you. And then they also got to make stuff at arts and crafts and sell it, like necessarily that we didn't get. Like I think there's like it's like a little unicorn piggy banks, or just like random little Dollar Tree trinkets, but you paint them, and they would paint them, and you could pay to buy them, but you couldn't bring them back. You had to mail it home right from there.
Yeah. Well, because I'm the old old lady here.
Mhm.
That so back in the day, my first incarceration, we the craft shop was a thriving thing that we could access. You had the actual, we called it piddling. It was called piddling back then. So you had the actual craft shop you could go to, but we had in-cell. So Miss Jerry's here and Desiree's here, and I know they remembered that we had Marci. Believe it or not, our cubicles were, we had a crocheted blanket, we crocheted our flip flops that looked like a little house shoe. Like the whole thing was covered in crochet, little crochet thing for your radio, like.
Yeah.
And so we were able to do that. I did a lot of painting. Like we would on the weekend, we would just put Lifetime on and we would just sit around in the day room and do. Yeah. Well, we did for a while and then they took that away too.
Yeah, they're slowly taking everything away, it seems.
Yeah.
How they kept, because that was a big deal, was people crocheted shower bags. That's what they wanted to keep the most time.
Yeah.
And the way arts and crafts work is you can buy arts and crafts, but if they come and search you, you have to have your receipt. And you can't have anything made for yourself from it. Like if you make a shower bag, contraband. If you make a scrunchie, contraband. If you make your little slippers or your radio cover like you, they're coming and tearing it off. For just, why are you worrying about my bag? But
Right. Right. But you can send it home to your kids, and what a great way to give them something tangible, because that's something I remember a lot of women that had pen pals that would send money. They'd be like, "Oh, I had my pen pal hook my kids up for Christmas," and at least they, and at least
yeah,
they felt like, yeah,
and that
I
really
remember.
does, that is a thing. But I always, when I was in there on my daughter's birthdays and Easter, I always tried to send her. I always got Christmas presents for them. This is actually another beautiful ministry out there in Ohio. I know. We're gonna get y'all one, but it's called Tapestry of Love Ministry. She was a lifer and she got out. Her name's Sheila Luther. She's doing amazing, and she started coming back in the prisons. And at first, she was bringing us stuff like hygiene and like just stuff you can't get, exclusive stuff, like chapstick, a nice cup. You know how it goes. But she can't come back in the prison right now because of her health, and she's getting older. Now what they do, she sends you a form, and you put you, even if it's not your kids, you can nominate someone's kids or something, or you can use your own. And she sends them backpacks and Christmas presents, like a box of stuff. And like over the years, my mom started depending on that. She'd be like, "Hey, is the box," or not depending, but she was like, "Hey, are the backpacks coming this year?" So
Yeah, that's
it's just
awesome.
nice. And then right when I got out, she had sent some stuff and stuff too. So it's just pretty and that wouldn't be a thing if she hadn't got out and decided that she still wanted to be a part of it and help.
I want to ask you, Heather and Marci, something. I am not a mother. Well, I'm the mother of a little cat, but I mean, I'm not a mother. So, I know that I survived all those years in prison through community, like folks like y'all, and and some connection to my parents and my brother. Thank God for them. I'm curious to the connection that you were able to maintain with y'all's children. How can you tell our listeners how important that was to your mental health, your stability, and your ability to survive? How important was holding on to that connection to your kids?
I don't think we have time for all that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
that one's loaded. It was just very important and very challenging. And like, I might have sent him cute stuff and stuff, but I also had horrible phone calls where my oldest was mad I wasn't home. The time that Anna, Anna told me one time I should just say sorry. Just tell them you're sorry, mommy, so they'll let you come home. Even if you didn't do it, sometimes you just gotta say you're sorry.
Yeah.
And like that just broke my heart. But had I not had them, I don't know how I would have been able to deal with it, like still having connection. Because a lot of women, they go in there and completely lose all contact with their kids. Their kids get taken into the system. And if you're in Ohio, if you're in there for 18 months, they can take them permanently. I think that's right. Don't quote me. Don't get me lying. So I'm just very blessed that I had my mom that like kept my, like I specifically remember a visit whenever Anna was still little, and I was holding her in my hand, and my mom was like, put her head to your chest, like, because that was our thing. So I had to, just for like our little bond thing. But so it was extremely important. And that's the problem with not being able to do it, is you want desperately to have this bond, but how do you do it with the walls between you?
I think that is a tricky question, Toon, because first I'll say that as someone who did their time pretty rough and spent a lot of time in medium custody and in ADSEG, and there was for certain, a direct correlation between women who had no contact, or lots that didn't even know where they were because people will take them and move, and that were in higher custody levels, like they're physically acting out, mentally acting out, and getting in trouble. So that you notice for sure. But I'll
Yeah,
just
I
say,
was.
yeah.
So obviously I was in a lower security
Mm-hmm.
prison, so I just I just went in and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I
Yeah.
blow my whistle, throw my flag. I
Yeah.
want to change and be a better person. But that's hard too, is hearing people on the phone, or watching people cry about their kids, or hearing them argue about their kids. Like, that is so heavy, and you feel it. Like,
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
I had a friend, very close friend of mine, and she lost her daughter. And it was early in the morning, and I still remember her like cries echoing through the dorm on the phone.
Yeah.
So no, it's like something that, how do you even explain that? Like, you just have to watch someone else parent your child if you're lucky, and you can't get mad at them for the way that they're doing it, because if you would have stayed out, you could have done it yourself. So you just have to give credit where credit's due and be grateful. So it is just extremely hard.
What would have been helpful with that? With how could co-parenting look? And I didn't co-parent from inside. I didn't have really access to co-parent. That I was told, well, you're in there. You don't get a say. And so then my relationship turned from parent to like the aunt that you just kind of hear stories about what's happening with the kids, and then you talk to them and love them up. So I was not involved with any, are they having trouble at school, or how do we discipline in that, or how do we reward this, or none of that. So for me, I think it could have been better for us as an entire family had that been different. What are your thoughts on that, and what is your ideal? If you knew you had to go to prison, and it was 11 years ago, and you knew you were going, with all the knowledge you have now, what would co-parenting from prison look like for you?
Consistency. Just having, towards the end of my time, I started like being very stringent. But like, just call, like, you have to, if your kid will go for it. Anna did towards the end, but not at first. But like, I used to call her, and I would help her with her homework, and like I used open-ended questions and stuff. But as far as like parenting, with like you're saying, like how you just became, there's nothing you can do. I don't even know what it would look like. I mean, I've seen girls in there that stay on the phone constantly all day long and try, but really they're not controlling anything. They're just making themselves miserable, like living outside the wall. So that's a thin line between bliss and.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you said that you're making yourself miserable living outside these walls, right? Like, and I remember the first time I was locked up, the first 10 years, the only way I could cope was to completely sever my mind and my heart and my spirit from my family. Now, I would see my parents once every 3 months, and I would allow myself to know them and feel them. And the second I walked away from visitation, I lived inside of those walls, because to live outside of those walls was so deeply painful. But the consequence of doing that, what I found later, was that prison became my whole life and my whole mentality, so that when I did get out, I didn't know how to function out here. I didn't know how to.
No,
And so the second time I got locked up, I told my friends and my family on the outside, look, I'm making the conscious decision to live 1 foot inside behind this wall and 1 foot outside of the gate. And it's not going to be easy because it's extremely painful to do, because I have to be here and I have to function here. But if I let go of that attachment to the outside world, all hope is lost for me for recovery.
So for me, it was, I had to be here and do this, but while I'm here doing this and these are out here, I'm going to do every single thing I can to get better and do programmings and do everything so that when I do go out and I can physically be there, I'm there.
Yeah.
And that's all I remember, like, just telling my daughter, like, because she didn't understand what prison was because she was so little. I'd say, basically, mommy got in trouble. Mommy's at school. I'm at better mommy school. And that's what I told her for a while. And because, I mean, really, that's what it was. I was working on myself and doing programming and recovery and stuff. And so, but definitely, you make yourself miserable if you live outside the gates. And it is just, and like during reentry, right when you're about to reentry, that's when it's the worst with it, because it's like you're so close. You're like standing on the fence. So, yeah, totally get it.
I remember coming back from visitation or during visitation, and some of the things I did with my girls that my youngest, they grew up seeing me in visitation from birth till I came home and they were in middle school, so almost in middle school. And so we would braid hair, we would do things like that, make funny hairstyles. We would read, because we did have books available to read to the kids that sometimes their pages were torn out, and I mean, they weren't in good condition. But we would do things like this. And I remember feeling so like full of life during visitation, and then them going one way. And sometimes that goodbye was, okay, love you, see you next time, and
And
everybody's happy. And sometimes it's they're clinging
dragging and
on to your
pulling and
clothes,
crying.
and the officer's telling you to hurry, and they don't want to let go of you, and they're crying, please, can I stay? And my daughter, she, not my youngest, but the next one up, I remember she was about 4, and she says, "Please, I promise I'll be good. I can stay with you. I promise I'll be good." And she, they just don't have any understanding that you don't have control over that, that, you know, but even on the good visits, even when they ended on a positive note and everybody left smiling, I I go back, and you get strip search to go back to the dorm again, and then it's just that reality of the separation. It's not just a space separation. The separation feels
It's
massive.
emotional attachment. You're almost hungover the first couple days after the visit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best way I know how to put it, because you're just like emotionally drained, and it's just like, yeah.
Well, Heather, I can tell you're a writer, right? Like, what a beautiful way to explain that. And I have told people that before. I'm like, I feel hung over after visitation, not just the amount of sugar that I've consumed in massive amounts, but I literally feel hung over the next day. And I still have this feeling whenever I leave my dad's house, or I say goodbye to my brother on a trip, after I've seen him or something. Even my friends, like, I feel incredibly anxious when I have to tell people I care about, well, I'm leaving, I'll see you later, because it feels like visitation. That feeling of leaving a visit after spending time with your family it ranks up there with probably the top 3 worst experiences of prison, and the other to me being strip searches. That feeling is something that, unless you go through it, and I can only imagine if it were my kids that I'm walking back to the dorm having seen, and it does, it makes you feel completely drained.
There were a few little trinkets I kept as contraband throughout my incarceration, and I'm wondering if you had any little gems that you weren't supposed to have, but you kept.
Oh Lord. Okay, so funny story. What had happened was, so I was in this program. This is at the very beginning of my sentence. The first program I did was behavior modification, right? And my oldest comes to visit, and she has the cutest headband on. It's like got jewels on it and all this stuff, and it's nice, but it's contraband to its finest. But she let me put it on. I took it back with me. I flipped it over. They didn't say nothing. So I had this headband, but everybody started realizing I had this headband because people have headbands, but not like that. And so I had this headband, and it was just so cute. And I was in like a program where they like call out your behaviors. And so I had to stand in the middle of a group. I'm minding my own business. Why am I going to get in trouble? All I'm doing is I got a headband. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm changing. And they were like, they had my headband, and they made me give them my headband. It was a whole thing. I had to learn to get over myself. I had to give them the headband. It was just so sad. So I had that. And then, as far as like trinket wise, the only thing that really stayed with me my whole time was my grandma when I was in county. She dropped me off a Bible because at Franklin County, you could physically drop it off and they would bring it to you. So she like highlighted some passages and wrote to Heather in it. I wish I actually had it, but it's poor little worn out guy now, but we love him.
Yeah. It's so funny that yours was a hair thing because my youngest daughter, one of our first contact visits, she had those little pink cotton hair ties, and I mean she's 2 at this point, and so those little baby hair ties, and I got it and put it on my finger, and
How long did you
then
hold on to it?
I held on to it for about 4 years. I had that little
Mhm.
hair tie, and everything that you do to keep prison contraband, that little hair tie, went through it. And actually I think I lost it when I had a mental breakdown in the middle of my incarceration and ended
Me
up,
too. About year
uh,
6.
uh I mean, I lost it in a major way that I ended up in the psych hospital for 6 months and lost everything that I had. So that trinket left
Mm.
with that. But it was that little hair tie. I'm wondering, I cannot, and I feel like we could talk for a lot longer, but we only have less than 15 minutes. I want to talk about mail. You talked about using mail to keep your bond with your children, and I want to talk about. I want to touch briefly on mail policies. You all have tablets. Do you still have paper mail in
So
Ohio?
mail policies are like right now, because whenever I first got incarcerated, then we could get letters in the mail. We could, like, I remember one time my daughter got me some bookmarks from the book fair and sent them, and I was able to get them. But now you can't have, whenever your letters come, they copy them. Like, and now they are sending it to this whole process center, and they are crazy about mail right now. So whenever I left, it had just basically it was pointless to even send someone a card because they were getting the picture of it. But they did switch to getting out, and so now they have video visits. But I couldn't get it to work before I left, and it was like a whole people who had been there had JPay. They'd been there for years, decades almost, and they had all their pictures on their JPay. And now all of a sudden they're discontinuing the service. You can't have it anymore.
Oh, so they switched providers, so
Mm-hmm.
anybody that had their pictures already
Yeah,
uploaded.
they were slowly starting to come back, but still some of them got lost.
In Texas, what we're finding is with this digital mail, it's the same thing. We have a central processing center. Things are mailed in and then scanned into their tablet. But what we're finding is sometimes first of all, then when you leave prison, you don't have that anymore, which some of those things that I got in prison, I will not have the opportunity to get again. Some of those things that my grandparents sent, that I have things from family members that are no longer with us. I have things that from my relationship, my marriage that dissolved. things that he sent me, that the girls' first writings, the girls, some of any letter that he ever wrote that had anything to do with first steps first, because I missed all of that,
Mm.
anything. I kept those letters. So I have a timeline, and any letter that he would write something and then they would write over it. And I kept that. I wouldn't be able to get that again ever. Those would be
Mhm.
gone forever if something happened and I lost those while I was there. And I'm just think that there's a huge there's a huge or a lost opportunity for bonding. I think that this is
Yeah,
going
and it really is.
to
Like
affect.
that, and it just started like they couldn't color anymore. Like it was just like slowly it started
Yeah.
happening, but
So,
yeah.
and unrelated to actual parenting and being an incarcerated mother, but still just on this male thing, our reasoning is not because of all the money that the state is making, that the agency is making, as kickback for 100% digital messaging. That's not the reason that they're doing it, right? They're saying that it's to prevent contraband from being sent in. And in my experience, contraband did not come through the mail, So I'm wondering what your experience with that is and what you
My
saw.
experience with that is they have every reason to want to copy the mail.
Really, a lot of things were coming in through the mail
Yeah,
in the
right,
facility.
right towards the end of my time. I'm not sure like what it is. Some people say it's bug spray, but they call it paper. So like when you get a letter, I never, because again, I was just living right. But towards the end of my sentence, everybody started getting messed up. I have friends in there now that are still getting it, and they were mailing it, and it was like on the paper. So that's why they started copying stuff, and then it's just
Really?
been like a whole thing. Yeah, and like girls, it's crazy. It's almost like a whole nother. Like I wrote a story about it about coming out to walk to school. I'm going to school for a what was the class? It was something about I don't know, but this girl turned around and blew smoke in my face because she was getting high, and I was like, "What in the world? What is this? Like they're just being able to walk around and do this right now?" Because there was just so many people and they're so understaffed. Like I'm surprised that because that's I
You
think
in the
why when
halfway
I was there
house?
they stopped digitizing, like you said, because it was going to our
Mhm.
tablets, but they just couldn't keep up with it. I think like scanning it, and they would like scan half of it. You'd only get like half of it, and then you'd message them, and they'd be like, "Well, we don't have it. Sorry." Like I remember when Frozen Pancakes won the award in Pen America, I only got half the letter. Luckily, I had won before, so I knew what it said, but I didn't know.
Wow.
But yeah, definitely, right. It's actually very sad in there right now. And it was getting worse and worse when I left, so I can only imagine now. But they're doing what they can, but it's like a double-edged sword because it's like you're getting rid of the drugs, which you are, but they're still getting them because that's just how it goes. But you're also severing like the ability to be able to bond and write letters and get mail and pictures and real school pictures and birthday cards, and so it's just a lot.
Yeah. I'm
Yep,
I'm just
those
really
two they put
surprised.
on paper. That's yep, you're right. It's
We're
called
getting small reports from women's prisons in Texas about just, kind of more isolated incidents. It's not on a, uh, big scale, and I never saw any of it. And girl, I was in a rough prison, and I was in the rough parts of the ribs in the hood of the prison, and like we used to call it. That's in medium custody, and I just, we didn't see it, and the contraband that was brought in. It was brought in by staff. It wasn't mailed in. One time I knew of somebody that got needles, like they were in a greeting card, and
Oh wow.
sewing needles, not
Probably a
needles for.
crafter. That's what I was thinking in my head.
Well, we can't
Yeah.
they don't sell sewing kits or sewing needles in Texas. That's contraband. So you
Yep,
have
I
to,
know it. You gotta get them
you know,
from OPI where I
right, you
went.
have to get
So
it.
I
We
know
all
how it
had
goes.
one. Everybody had one, but
Well, you're not
you
allowed to
weren't
have
supposed
them.
to. So,
I didn't, Marcy, I didn't have one.
you didn't have a sewing needle?
Girl, why? When I would just take it
Don't
over to
talk to me.
somebody else and say, will you
Oh,
stitch
you
this
had
up
your
for
little
me?
I had an altar. I get it.
I
I
I
support the
altered
side hustles.
clothes. Hey, I made them cat suits is what we called them. Baby, I made your uniform fit you. You looked like you was walking on the runway.
Yep, and they do that, and then you catch the wrong CO, they'll make you go change, take it
Yes.
off.
Yes, yes. Um, Okay, so Heather, you're home, and you said something at the beginning of the show that you have your daughter. Your daughter's with you. Can you just touch on how that transition is going, because it's still happening, right?
Yeah, it's definitely still happening. Um, so it's just been interesting because I was terrified my whole time. I'm like, because like I said, she wasn't mine. And I'll admit that because she wasn't. I was like, what if she doesn't like me? Like, what if I don't do everything right? Da, da, da. And it was actually my friend Ashley who she said when I was in prison, she said, I don't know why you're worried. You're coming out with like a fresh slate. You've never disappointed her ever. All you have to do is come out and be the mom that she wants you to be. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. And so that's what I've been trying to do. But it's like we've definitely bonded, and like we made a TikTok, and I love her. Like even today I just looked at her and I just told David, like, I just love her. So it's just like learning like her little attitude and her little schedule. And the food is it's hard to find stuff that because if you don't grow up with a baby, you don't know what they like to eat and what they don't and how they I know her McDonald's order. I need a
Yeah.
biggie bag, ketchup, extra pickle, buffalo sauce. That's all I got. I try, but it's just a slow process. I remember when she first got here, she was like in the shower and like, or I don't know, but she didn't want me to be in there with her. And I was like, okay. And because I was trying to show her something or she'd ask me a question, something like that. And I told her, I said, she was feeling weird about it. I was feeling weird about it. And I said, we're just going to have to do it because it's going to happen eventually. Like, I'm your mom. We're going to have to do it. And so then we both kind of just like did it. I think I was showing her like her loofah thing because I got her this loofah, but she was like, I don't know. I don't know. But
I love that you just pointed out the simple thing of not knowing her meals, and that's my youngest too, that were these preteens when I got out of prison, and in diapers when I left. That's a process. You know them, but on a whole different level. You don't know them by living with them every day or seeing them. And my girls don't live with me. They live with their dad, and I'll see them this weekend. Yay.
yay.
But it is that getting to know, and that I remember awkwardness that's happening, like when it's that age, um, being in the car and not knowing really what what to say, or how to interact with them in a
Right.
positive
It's like,
way.
hi, this is me. And then it's
Right.
like, yeah, it's supposed to be like some grandiose thing. And it's like, but you just want to be like comfortable being around them, you know? So,
Yeah, yeah. One of our good friends, Lisa, is watching from Facebook, and she asks, "Do we feel that TDCJ is preparing mothers with their parenting classes?" Um, so I didn't take a parenting class in TDCJ. Uh, I wasn't, because of the length of my sentence, I couldn't get into
into
anything
it.
that they didn't make me take. So I'm not sure what that parenting class is. What I do
So,
wish is that the Wyndham School District would be able to correlate with the state, so that mothers that had mandated parenting classes, that they could take those, and it could count towards them working on getting their kids back, or getting visitation with their kids, or whatever the individual pathways might look for
yeah,
those
in Ohio,
parents.
there's a parenting group called Mothers Matter that the community action, that's what they make you take. And there's a ministry that went and got certified. It's called Vineyard of Columbus, and they come in and teach it at the chapel. But if you can show the chaplain that you really need it and it's court ordered, you'll get right in because she understands. Like if you're fighting, yeah, I was blessed again because Ohio's programming is nice. I took parenting inside out with Miss Madeline, who would be so proud if she seen my chore chart on the fridge. And
We
like
have
even
another.
right now, look, this is funny. Watch it not be here. Oh, it's not. The one time I was talking about it, I just reorganized. I still have my parenting binder right here
Oh, do
from
you?
the halfway house, just because that was the best one. And it was the lady that ran it. It was her own curriculum. And then of course after me, they was like, no, we're gonna use a different curriculum, right? Because this is the actual legit one.
Right. Right. Um, Brandy's watching from Facebook, and she's asking about keeping up the relationship with the children's dad. And for me, I have 2 baby daddies who I don't really refer to them as that very often, but my first set of kiddos, which they were older, they were in middle school when I went in, they were old enough that they were seeing my family often enough that I didn't ever talk to their dad, because they lived close by my parents and my grandparents, and then the young ones, their dad, he for whatever he might have against him, he made sure that I saw those girls, and he made sure that his phone was turned on and I talked to those girls. And he and I didn't always get along, and we certainly didn't co-parent, but he made sure my girls knew me, and that's everything. So we can't not, we're at the hour, ladies, but we cannot not mention Jill Gonzalez here from the Storybook Project, which is an organization it's not state run. It's a nonprofit organization that works with women's prisons in Texas. And what they do is they have women read stories out loud and take the recordings home and mail those recordings and along with a copy of the book to their children. I participated in that. So many of our Linus members have participated in that program, and it's amazing. So Jill, we appreciate everything that you're doing for the incarcerated women in Texas, the incarcerated mothers and children, and also for supporting our show. We always love to see you on. Thank you so much. Toonchi, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I just want to thank Heather again for coming on and just being, I feel like I know you, right? Like if you did time, it's just so many experiences. Doesn't matter where you're at, Texas, Ohio, New York. There is something that we all share, this shared experience on so many levels. So it just felt like, we're family. And so great conversation. And thank you again for your just candidness and vulnerability. And, you're doing a great job, even if it doesn't always feel that way. And I am so glad to hear you say, I don't mind telling people something wrong or I need help. And I think that's a huge asset.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I most definitely echo that, Heather. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you all for spending Wednesday night with us. This is our favorite night of the week. You all are our community. We will be back here live next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, y'all. So catch us. Thank you for, if you're watching on your phone, tapping your screen, hitting that like button, commenting, sharing, all of the good stuff. If you're listening wherever you hear your favorite podcasters, please leave us a review. We love those. They're our favorite. And we will see you next time. I see you, Malibu. I see you, Malibu. I love you. Thank y'all for joining us, and we will be back here next week.
Bye, guys.
Out with us on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast with Marci